And from the same tradition as Joshua this morning, we welcome you with these words from a psalm of David. I will sing a new song to you, O giver of life. Upon a 10-stringed harp I will play to you, the one who gives victory to kings, who rescues his servant David. Rescue me from the cruel sword. Deliver me from the hand of aliens, whose mouths speak lies and whose right hands are false. May our sons and their youth be like plants full grown, our daughters like cornerstones cut for the palace. May our barns be filled with produce of every kind. May our animals increase by thousands, by tens of thousands in our fields, and may they be heavy with young. May there be no breach in the walls, no exile, no cry of distress from our streets. Blessed are you. Blessed are you, the people whose God is the breath of life.
Please join me in the responsive reading. America, land created in common, dream nourished in common. If the house is not yet finished, don't be discouraged, builder. The plan and the pattern is here. Good morning. My name is Jack Petit, and presently I have the privilege of serving you as your governing board secretary. My wife, Andrea, and I joined the church back in 1994 when our children were young, and spent our early years in character school. We started coming here in the early 1980s, though, when we were dating and lived up on Heritage Hill. In 1986, we were married here in the chapel by a remarkable woman, the Reverend B. Margaret Voss, as many you fondly remember her as Bunny Voss, a beautiful woman way ahead of her time. So why Fountain Street? Well, first, it was the only church that my wife and I could decide on where we could attend. And then for me, it made sense. And how does it make sense to me to be here? I was raised in the Reformed Church of America. My story, though, is not of the repression of the church, but of confusion. Where it was different for me is my parents are 1950s Dutch immigrants who left the Netherlands, not because there was too much religious freedom there, but for economic reasons. The dichotomy of this situation is I was raised as a European social democrat in a very conservative setting. For example, during the summer months, our family's Sunday morning tradition was to pack up the car and then head out to Lake Michigan Beach at Tunnel Park and meet with other Dutch immigrant families. And as we loaded the trunk in the morning, I would see our neighbors drive to church, and the parents were always giving us a scowl and disapproving look. But then in the back seat, I'd see the friends in the back seat with saddened eyes as they made their first of two trips. Now, just one trip to church that day. This was the 60s, and you had to go twice then. I never felt I fit in. I tried, but I did the rituals of the Reformed Church, and they didn't make sense in my life. So, for college, then I went to Hope College. That made a lot of sense too, though, but where you were required to take a year of religion classes. But there I had the best religion professors for me. I had Dr. Alan Verhey, who helped me understand the context of scriptures much better than I did when I was raised. And then Dr. Dennis Voskuil. And this is a remarkable guy. He stripped away the mundane of the church and brought the excitement of what the early church was like. And that made sense to me. Because I learned at that time that your beliefs are personal. It cannot really be defined by religions and creeds. The expectation for me to have the same belief system as others or to fit in the domination guidelines were removed. That's why Fountain Street makes sense. Here I'm free to have my own belief system and not have the expectation as everyone else here. So, a quote from a civil rights activist, Audre Lorde, it resonates with me. It's not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And I hope we celebrate our differences here. So every week we have new friends visit with us. We welcome you especially today and invite you to stay after our gathering so that we can get to know one another a little bit better. Free the mind, grow the soul, change the world. We welcome you to be part of that with us. This is Fountain Street, and you belong here.
One of the promises we make as a community to each and every person who comes to us this morning, whether you have been coming for decades or if this is your first day, is that you will have an opportunity created by the work of these people to grow your soul. And that grows my soul. Thank you. And thank you already to so many musicians that are participating today and readers and other creatives. You'll find all their names listed in our bulletin. And I just got to share an example for you of how something like a piece of music does more than what it appears. My daughter asked for an old school vinyl record player this Christmas. And I got her one. And I thought it odd because she's a child that lives almost exclusively in the world of Facebook and Twitter and this. And from her room, I heard drop. The first song she ever put on was that song. And to hear it again connects me to a 15-year-old that I now have hope understands something deeper than the latest craze on the radio. She can touch something which is of religious power in a song that endures like that. Thank you. What?
Some of you may not know that that's a concert waltz, Bethina, composed by Scott Joplin, one of the earliest published African-American composers in the United States. In fact, his works, all of them were published during his lifetime, but only compiled about 30 years ago. It's a wonderful assortment of music from the turn of the 20th century. Scott Joplin had trouble getting taken seriously as a serious composer, ragtime being regarded as, well, popular music, not serious music. And he composed a number of pieces, including Bethina, to demonstrate his capacities to write serious music. And it really is, if you look at it, it's a tour de force of key changes. Starts in G, goes to B flat, back to G, off to F, and to B minor, and those interludes wander through all sorts of keys. Scott Joplin is saying, you want serious music? I've got your serious music. And you don't even hear it because you have to see how artfully it's done. He is also the composer not only of a number of rags that you're going to hear, which he considered a serious form of piano music, not just entertainment, but he's also the author, composer of the earliest, that I know of, opera written by an African American called Sri Manasha. And if our choir wants to sing the last number a real slow drag, it would not be a drag in any way that I can understand. It's a beautiful piece. Thank you. You'll hear more. You heard several at the beginning. So I'm glad that Deb is here. It is the last Sunday in African American or Black History Month. It's also the last Sunday in the month we have been talking about courage, and you couldn't put a better pairing of ideas together, because those who are more than 10 years old know that one of the things that we have learned most about and know most about is that the African American community has had to have courage in ways that most white Americans never, ever have to, historically and even today. And I say that even today because this past week, we enjoyed yet another experience of Stand Your Ground in Florida, and wonder how long any of us would put up with that if we were on the receiving end of that justice. It is also 2 years just this week, when Trayvon Martin died, and 50 years ago, believe it or not, this week when Malcolm X was killed. So it is a history filled with loss and pain and struggle, and yet courage. And you're going to hear words from members of our community who have walked in that community, and they'll share with some things. But now I'm going to tell you a couple of things about why I'm doing this. I mentioned Trayvon Martin, and 2 years ago I got a notice that there was going to be a march here in town. And so I went down to Hartside. I want to say hello to Mr. Carpenter. He's a member of the Hartside community. You'll be hearing his voice later. We went down to Hartside to meet up with others going on the march. And I was all excited until I saw the other 15 people who had showed up. It was cold. It was Saturday. Have you ever been on South Division on Saturday in the winter? Nothing happening there. But we were there, we were going to do this, and we all believed in it. So a few of us, some young, some old, mostly black, a few white, said, we're going to do this walk. And we walked all the way up Division to the courthouse. And I got to tell you, 25 people walking up the street is not a march. But we were really not a march while we were walking until a younger woman, now a member of the Hartside staff, Chaka Holly, who has been to our church from time to time, got out her protest chops, and she started saying, I'm fired up. And people said, I won't turn back. And suddenly we were marching. What do we want? Justice. What do we want it now? I hate protest marches. I loathe going on them. I don't like chanting even more. It feels really dopey. And yet, without the march or the chant, I think we would have made less of a difference, if only to ourselves. The reason I'm telling you this is that when we think about courage, often we of the melanin deprived think that we find our courage inside. We dig down deep. But the reality is we find courage in relationships. Thank you. We find them when we find ourselves as mothers and fathers speaking out when our kids are in a bad way. Don't you talk to my son like that. Or as children, when we do what our parents say. I expect you to, and you do it. Or in your neighborhoods, who's been part of a neighborhood watch, or maybe in your workplace. Speaking of workplaces, it was hard to celebrate courage this week when the UAW couldn't get certified down in Tennessee, but that's okay. It's going to happen anyway, you know it. Courage is found in our connections to other people, either directly, the people we know, or out of history. And I'll tell you a story at the end about that. But what you're going to hear today are words that have fortified, strengthened the people who are reading them. And they can fortify and strengthen you too, because Black history is not for blacks, it's for everyone. And Black music and Black poetry, likewise, is for you, not just for a community. And so on this last Sunday, I've asked some friends to help give you some gifts of music and word so you can go back into the world ready to be fired up so you won't turn back. So the work of the world will not be too much for you to bear. So I want you to collect yourself, and I'm going to invite Deb Brower to pull a little music out of the air, and then I'm going to ask Mary Lou Smith to be sharing some words after Deb is done. Thank you.
I have to add a thank you to Deb, because playing Joplin is one of my favorite things, and Solace is one of my really, really favorite things. It's gorgeous. Thank you. Lorraine Hansberry was the Chicago-born playwright who astounded the New York theater world in 1959 with her play, A Raisin in the Sun, at a time when it was totally unlikely that a young, black, female writer would create a highly acclaimed, award-winning work She succeeded. Only 6 years later, she died of cancer at the age of 34. Later, many of her writings were put into a work titled To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. Got my copy. First produced as an off-Broadway play in 1969, and this is an excerpt. The playwright addresses a group of young writers in a United Negro College Fund writing contest. I wanted to be able to come here and speak with you on this occasion because you are young, gifted, and black. In the month of May, 1964, I, for one, can think of no more dynamic combination that a person might be. The Negro writer stands surrounded by the whirling elements of the world. He stands neither on a fringe nor utterly involved, the prime observer, waiting, poised for inclusion. Oh, the things we have learned in this unkind house that we have to tell the world about. Despair? Did someone say despair was a question in the world? Well then, listen to the sons of those who have known little else, if you wish to know the resiliency of this thing you would so quickly resign to mythhood, this thing called the human spirit. Life? Ask those who have tasted of it in pieces rationed out by enemies. Love? Ask the troubadours who come from those who have loved, when all reason pointed to the uselessness and foolhardiness of love. Perhaps we shall be the teachers when it is done. Out of the depths of pain that we have thought to be our sole heritage in this world, we know about love. And that is why I say to you that though it be a thrilling and marvelous thing to be merely young and gifted in such times, it is doubly so, doubly dynamic to be young, gifted, and black. Write about our people. Tell their story. You have something glorious to draw on, begging for attention. Don't pass it up. Use it. This nation needs your gifts. Perfect them.
Earlier this month, you're almost ready for your next, and let's see, whose number is Mr. Carpenter our next, or Deb the next? You're filling in for Marilyn's organ issues in a moment. Wait. More great music. I started a week or two ago talking about Frederick Douglass, and I should tell you that more people took part in creating this service than are here. You see them listed in your order of worship, and I want to make sure their voices or their words or their chosen words come up. Aura and Courtney Jones are a wonderful couple, and they are in Florida right now, so we hate them because it's cold outside. But she provided this passage from Frederick Douglass, a portion of which we did as a responsive reading, but I want you to hear it, not just speak it. And then I'm going to offer a poem called Frederick Douglass by Robert Hayden. I like Frederick Douglass because I'm a Fred too. I'm still trying to live up to him. Douglass himself said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are those who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters." This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Because power concedes nothing without a demand. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, diastole, systole, reflex action, when it is finally won, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians, this man, this Douglass, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none haunted, hunted, alien. This man, superb in love and logic. This man shall be remembered. Oh, not with statues, rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, the lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. Fabulous. Another fabulous person in our midst is John Robinson. I remember you as a trumpeter, but you're going to be using your voice today and giving words that are powerful.
Well, I want to thank you, Fred, for including me in this because I guess courage is one of my spiritual practices that I'm trying to nurture right now. This is I'll Rise from Maya Angelou, the poem by Maya Angelou, as adapted by Ben Harper. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me down like the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my happiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I'd laugh like I've got an oil well pumping in my living room. So you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, but I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise. Out of the shacks of history's shame, up from a past rooted in pain, I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise. Now did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops falling, with weakened by my soulful cries? Does my confidence upset you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I walk like I've got a diamond digging up in my front yard. Now did you want to see me broken? You've bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries. So you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, and I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise, 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 out of the shacks of history's shame, out of a past rooted in pain. I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise. So you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me down like the very dirt, and still like the dust I'll rise. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, and we'll rise, we'll rise, we'll rise. Out of the shacks of history's shame, up from a past rooted in pain, we'll rise, we'll rise, we'll rise, rise, rise.
Down here, our person you may not have met yet is Thomas Carpenter, who is part of our extended family down at the Heartside community. And you're going to be singing for us in just a moment. But I'm going to put a little spacer in there, some words by County Cullen, another great poet of the late 19th and especially the early 20th century. We shall not always plant while others reap the golden increment of bursting fruit, not always countenance abject and mute, that lesser men should hold their brothers cheap. Not everlastingly while others sleep shall we beguile their limbs with mellow flute, not always bend to some more subtle brute. We were not made to eternally weep. The night whose sable breast relieves the stark white stars is no less lovely being dark than are the buds that cannot bloom at all in light, but crumple piteous and fall. So in the dark we hide the heart that bleeds, and wait and tend our agonizing seeds. Mr. Carpenter.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home.
I'm not going to let Mercelada go right after that because, I'm sorry. That's just like, oh, we're done here, Mr. Carpenter. You can start. You're just all there is that needs to be said. But we still crave more. We have to have a few words by Langston Hughes. And then I'll ask Mercelada Muhammad Smith to turn, well, John, you turned a poem into a song. And Mercelada is going to return a song back to its origins as poem. And to put a little something in front of that, I'm going to say, I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I have known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like rivers.
Good morning. I realize why I like to go first now. Between the nervousness and then just taking everything in, but I will do my best for you today. My name is Mercelada Muhammad, and I have two pieces for you today. And I'd like to dedicate these two pieces to everyone in the room, but two people in particular. They're the two biggest reasons why I'm here today. One is my mother, Mutasha Muhammad, who bore me as the 12th of her 13 children. And Judith Keenitz is my adoptive mother, who introduced me and my family to Fountain Street Church. The first piece I actually wrote. I do write poetry now and again because I have to. This piece is actually written for a permanent piece of work that's at the Grand Rapids Art Museum. So if you're ever there and you remember this poem, it's written for a piece called Concourse by Mark Shinkman. It's called Instead God Said Be. Creation stories abound, overflowing mind from every religious angle, making children scream because their choices are hell, heaven, or nostalgic indifference, lost in pining for a supposed time when neither choice existed, when one man and one woman romped around naked but didn't know it. Apparently, before heaven, hell, and unashamed naked people, there was nothing in the beginning, or there was everything, which makes more godly sense. Where there is God, there has to be everything. So, in the beginning, there was everything. When God woke up or regained consciousness or created it, decisions had to be made about the business of being. After too much thought, planning, and eons of angel kiss-up suggestions, as they vied for positions with the now conscious God, time, had it existed, slipped away until it invented boredom, which the now conscious God of everything found annoying. Such a state developed on godly watch. In the beginning of a smoldering thickness of everything, God stood at its midnight middle, looked at the boredom of plans, scrapped them, and instead said, be, sending everything, not nothing, to the ends of space as bees' sound floated in whispering, smoky, gray-white tendrils across creation's blackened, richly layered canvas of everything, endlessly becoming and unbecoming. get my phone to cooperate here, and I'll do the second piece. This piece, I believe everyone will be familiar with, was originally written as a poem by James Weldon Johnson, and it was first performed by 500 school children in celebration of President Lincoln's birthday on February 12, 1900 in Jacksonville, Florida. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet, with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed? Have we come over a way that with tears have been watered? Have we come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast? God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who has by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee, lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Thank you.
What good is all of this except for the beauty we enjoy today? Well, I'll tell you a story. It was a few years ago when we were doing an occasional song we would teach rather than put in the hymn book. And one of them was Eyes on the Prize, one of my favorite songs. And if you have YouTube in your house, who doesn't have YouTube? Go Google up Mavis Staples singing Eyes on the Prize, and you will understand what it's all about. But we taught it differently here, and I don't have her voice, so I'm not going to sing it. But some people, all I can tell is that at some point, weeks later, after doing that, woman here in the congregation said, I had to help a woman get from one place to another in an airport in a wheelchair. And you know how airports are. And she said, the only thing that kept me going was that song. All of these poems, all of this music, is to help you stay on the march. Put one foot in front of the other. Keep moving. Because the prize is still that away. Oh, we'll have fun along the way and you'll get good things. And there is progress. We can look back and say, hey, I'm glad we're not there anymore. But we're not there yet. We are not there as a people. We're not there as a nation. And so these words put one foot in front of the other. W.E.B. Du Bois, William Edgar Burghardt Du Bois, first man of color to win a PhD from Harvard University, wrote in 1903 a book called Souls of Black Folk, one of the great books written in the 20th century. Go read it. But he wrote other things too. He wrote, "The prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence, not for the one good deed or single thought, but deed on deed, thought on thought, until day calling unto day shall make life worth living."
The people of the East suggest that it is a river into which we choose either to enter or to grasp and struggle. May you take the inspiration of this day with you, the voices and the songs, the spirit of those who have struggled with courage, and may it ask you to choose something new, to choose something better for you in a world in deep need this week. Go in peace, friends.